For those of you that were in our first Coaches Corner call, thanks for jumping on again. You kind of know the drill. For those that are new, this is a new series, a new conversational series that our instruction committee I had come up with, just to kind of have an opportunity for you all that do this day in and day out to have a sharing of ideas, sharing best practices, air some grievances, whatever you might need to have as a group to coalesce around, coaching and teaching. We were lucky enough to have Andy lead our first discussion last month. This month, Eric and Dan were nice enough to jump in and take the reins to lead today's discussion. A couple of things that we got feedback on from our last discussion was, kind of what you saw over the last couple of days. You saw a topic come out, our speakers, and then the other piece of feedback that we got was to make sure that we continue to leave some conversation at the end for some open forum for things that are off topic as far as the title of the day is concerned. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to kind of talk through some technical things. But first, want to certainly thank Dan, Eric, and Dan for taking the time out of their busy schedule up at Penn State to lead today's discussion. And will once Matt kind of goes through some technical announcements, Dan and Eric can kind of talk through what today's conversation is going to be like. And again, this conversation is only as good as the feedback that we get. So please don't hesitate to push the raise hand button on the bottom, and if you have a question, and really make the conversation lively. So thanks again, and Matt, it's desk is yours, buddy.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple quick things. While today is going to be a discussion, if you are not talking, please keep your microphone on mute so there isn't any background noise. The microphone button is down at the bottom of your screen. You can toggle it on or off. The video is optional, but of course, when we're speaking to each other, it is nice to see everyone's face. There is one button I'd like you all to avoid hitting. It's a rectangle with an up arrow at the bottom of your screen. Do not click that. That will share your screen and disrupt the presentation. When you are ready to speak, you can either unmute yourself and jump right in. You can raise your hand, as Jeff alluded to, or you can put a question into the chat feature and we can prompt the speakers. If you have any technical issues, you can put those into the chat feature as well, and I'll do my best to help you through those. Just be aware that most of the time, those technical issues stem from your own Wi-Fi connections. If anyone has dialed in via telephone today, if you can send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com. That way we'll make sure you get your PDR credits for this morning. And finally, we are recording this session. So if you need to refer back to it, or if any of your friends who couldn't make it today want to watch it, it will be up on our YouTube channel after the fact. But with that, I will turn it over to Eric and Dan.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll start by saying this is pretty cool. I know Dan and I are really excited to be a part of these, and in particular to learn from all of you. A lot of familiar faces that I see on the call here, and a bunch of friends. So I'm excited to learn from you all, and I think Dan shares in that as well. So Jeff already gave some feedback from the first call, which I believe we were traveling for and weren't able to be on. But some of that feedback, a couple of things seem to come up on routine, and I think we've heard this at other section meetings about the idea about faults and fixes. So we thought we would kind of wade into that a little bit, maybe start the conversation and see where things go today, basically see where you all take it, and then maybe that kind of lines some things up for the future. So our thought for today would be kind of the conversation that we hope to moderate, where you guys lead us for the first 30 minutes, and then kind of open it up from there to any off-topic stuff, or continue the conversations if you all are really into it. So I hope you find this something that will provide a foundation initially, but then you all lead the discussion and kind of take this where you all want it to go. kind of our thought here. So with that, start sharing screen here. Okay.
Can't see anything.
We can't. Nope. Can everybody see this?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
look at the
can.
button, Iron Ball Flight.
Iron ball flight. Perfect. All right. So the idea of faults and fixes, when Dan and I talk about it, or when we think about it, we feel like there's a lot of questions that can come up or things that we should think about when we identify something going on in the swing and then what the possible opportunity exists to provide some intervention for the golfer, right? So we thought we would kind of present an idea around faults and fixes where maybe we talk about it more like a decision tree, or what was the other?
Qualitative model.
So like a qualitative model to consider when we see something going on, how do we then think through the process to get to the point where we provide a possible intervention to improve what we are seeing?
Yeah.
Right.
I think what we're going to show you is, I think we do this for our students in level 1 teaching and coaching. We try and build this for them a little to give them an idea of kind of what's in our brain when we're coaching. So we see something, then where does our brain go once we see that?
Right. So we thought we'd start out here with, and stick to iron ball flight, at least in the examples that we're going to give, and maybe the one that we work through together with you all. So kind of stay away from driver for the moment, because there might be a couple of unique considerations between iron or driver. But for us, where we start is with the ball flight, right? I think a lot of you probably do that as well. If you're on this call and you're a little newer to teaching, maybe you're already doing that also. But when we're in our Golf Teaching Research Center, even when we're collecting full 3D data, every shot that's hit, we want to know where the golf ball went. Whether we display that for the golfer or not is a whole separate question, but we'd like to know the shot outcome. So where the golf ball starts, where the golf ball curves, where the golf ball finishes is kind of the top of our decision tree here, if you will. So then we'll zoom out a little bit on this, and bear with me because the system's a little new to us here. But as we build these out, when you look at the areas in yellow, how would you describe this row, the three things that we've identified here?
I guess the main reason the ball flew, why it flew. Yeah.
Right. So when we think about iron ball flight, it's dependent upon contact. Curve is going to influence a little bit of, obviously, of where the golf ball goes.
Yeah.
And then distance would be the third one. Right. So contact, curve, and distance. So each one of these, we could then build out beyond that. So let's start. We've got an example here that we've already put together relative to distance. So if we're thinking about looking at a golfer who maybe is lacking distance, or we want to improve distance, right? So we're thinking about a few different options that relate to why that golfer doesn't have the distance that we want, right? The first being contact. So we kind of say, actually, let me zoom in a little bit here. You can do the right click thing too. Oh, that's right. That'd be easier. Wouldn't it? So for distance, we're thinking about contact, and then we say, okay, see the other side where we go into contact possibilities. Club delivery would be another one. How are we kind of thinking about club delivery?
Yeah, club delivery, we were thinking about the dynamic loft or delivered loft, how the angle of attack could affect that. Yeah, a little bit of those items.
Right. Maybe not necessarily as much of the club delivery that would come into curve, right? But club delivery relative to, can you guys hear us? We good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We got a note from Google that no one can hear us, but if you can
No, we
hear
can all
us,
hear.
Okay. All right. So then the other option would be low club speed, right? So for distance, either contact is an issue or there's something going on with delivered loft or angle of attack, or there's low club speed, right? So if we then expand upon one of those, we just chose to do low club speed. Let's say that was an issue. Then we start to think about why might somebody have low club speed? And where did we get these for?
Yeah, this is from Sasha McKenzie's presentation. I think it was the Top 100 Summit a few years ago, where he found these as the 4 key elements to increase club speed, right?
So we won't dive into these necessarily, but the idea here is that if somebody has low club head speed, we could look at these 4 things to try to help increase their club speed. And for us,
Sorry.
Yeah.
So if someone has low club speed, this is how we want to work it when we go to the other side with you. It's why do they have low club head speed? What are the fundamental next steps to the reason they could have low club speed? So that's why we went to these 4. These are the 4 essential fundamentals of speed.
right. So we said just in this example, let's choose increase hand path, right? And so if we wanted to increase hand path, should we describe what hand path
Yeah,
is?
hand path length, how far they travel, hands travel in the backswing.
Right? So if we decided in our process here as a coach that we felt like increasing hand path length would be a good option for them to help increase club head speed, to help improve distance, to help get the ball where we want it to go, well, then we've got a few options there as well. Maybe one of the options is to get more pelvis turn in the backswing, right? Maybe we could get more torso turn in the backswing. Maybe we could get more arm adduction in the backswing. Maybe it's a tempo or timing kind of related thing with their swing, right? Or their transition sequence. So all of that kind of comes into play. And we thought, okay, let's say this golfer, for example, we've chosen to do more pelvis turn because we feel like they've got a lack of, or maybe they've got more opportunity for pelvis turn, right? So what could help that? Well, it could be a mobility issue. Maybe their stance is too wide, limiting their pelvis turn. Maybe their pelvis tilts are in a position where it's limiting pelvis turn. Or maybe their trail leg has too much flex throughout the backswing, right? All of those could be options to increase pelvis turn, to lengthen hand path, to improve speed, right? So we kind of drilled down here, and that's kind of what we were trying to get at here. We could keep going. If we've got mobility, is it trail hip internal rotation or is it lead hip external rotation, right? If it's trail hip internal rotation, well, could we simply do some sort of foot flare where we let them open it up, and now that allows a little bit more, improves their mobility, and up the chain is improved, right? So this is kind of how we were thinking about faults and fixes along more of a decision tree model as a possibility. Describe a little bit of why we think this way to allow us to maybe serve a larger population of golfers.
Do you want to show my example first?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do that. I'll let you drive.
Okay. So in building this out, we did this not quickly, but didn't sit and think for hours upon hours about it. But I want to take you over to, where did I put it? There it is. All right. This is early 20s, Dan. When I first started to learn how to teach and was getting into teaching, I just want to show you what my brain would have went through in my early 20s before I, got to hang out around here, before I learned from a couple different top 100 instructors. So we're going to go into curve. All right. So iron ball, flight, and curve. Too much curve to the left and too much curve to the right. So this is how I would have, my process would have been in those situations. So if I would have seen too much curve to the left, it would have been boom. I'm going to lay the club off at the top, or I'm going to weaken the left-hand grip. Done. That's what I'm doing for every single person that has too much curve to the left. Those are my corrections. Too much curve to the right, I'm going to put the club more across the line. I'm going to strengthen the lead hand grip, and or I'm going to try and turn my knuckles down more near impact. That's how I'm fixing too much curve to the right. So So in my early 20s, based on the knowledge I had and the philosophies I worked under, those were the only ways I knew how to correct those curvature mistakes. So that was learning under one person's philosophy and only getting to watch, I guess, one person's method. And I guess our hope with this is if we learn about each other's philosophies and methods, we can figure out several different ways to correct similar outcome issues. That way you're helping a large portion of the population rather than maybe 25% of the people that come through your door. Because if I'm seeing someone too much curve left and those are the only two ways I know how to fix it, what we used to do is like, oh, either you're not working hard enough in the lesson or the student isn't working hard enough. But it was like, maybe that's not the reason why the ball is curving too much to the left. There are other reasons the ball could curve too much to the left. So I think, and what's funny is I did this for speed probably 5 years ago on my own using this is called Lucidchart. I did it when I was going through my master's, and what we built out just quickly the other day, it is crazy how different it is from 5 years ago with the knowledge we've gained about, you know, building more speed.
Cool. All right. So there's an intro. How about we pause there? Are there any initial questions before we all start to build one of these out together?
Can we see questions?
And yeah, I'll stop sharing for a moment so that we can see you all. Any thoughts, questions?
Andy, there, definitely can't see on the other screen.
Andy, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How long do you continue down a path until you would opt for one of the other solutions?
How long do you continue?
I know there's not a stock answer, but let's say you look at, let's say it is that they don't have enough depth in their backswing or pelvis turn or torso rotation or whatever. And then you experiment with doing some of those things and that doesn't really have the effect that you had hoped. How long do you go down that path until you abort and switch to another solution?
So
is it completely player dependent based on how quickly they pick it up? Or I guess my question would be, if you know that that is the reason why they're not hitting it better, but for one reason or another, it just doesn't click with that person and it might take them a significant amount of, you know, physical training, or like maybe they really need to increase their range of motion, but you want them to feel like they're having some success. Like, what would you do?
So how long do we continue down the path? So if you're saying if we keep climbing down to find the root cause essentially, and then we find the root cause and that's not necessarily helping, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess, sure.
So that's a really good question. I'm trying to think about it. If I might go back up the tree again, because I think we're going down to find the root cause, but that's not necessarily what I might correct, right? If I'm using a task to correct a movement, as long as I know the true reason that they're struggling. So I don't want to give one away from the other side. But I guess if hand path length was short, and I find out the root cause is because they're not turning their pelvis and it's because they don't have enough mobility, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, just like if your initial thought leads you down one path, but then you go down that path and it doesn't seem to improve what you were looking to improve.
So
what would you do after that? Like, how long would you go down that path until you change something that you were doing?
So I've got two thoughts that come to mind with this question. One, I'd love to hear what other people think. for Andy's question. So others of you hop in here as well. But the other thing that brings to mind for me here is, in some of these cases, you may drill down and it is one root cause, and there are no other causes for this thing, right? Whereas we presented for speed, maybe there are 4 possible causes, and you chose to start with one and went down that path, but aren't getting any benefit, but still have the 3 other options because the golfer has issues in those areas. So you could pop out of that one and into another one to see if you get that benefit. But so I would say the answer varies, because sometimes you can drill it down to really one primary option that needs to be improved. Other times there may be multiple options to get there. And so that's where I would say, how quickly do you go to it? I think golfer dependent, golfer motivation, time available to work with a student, kind of all influences that. But I'd also be interested to hear what other people think.
Yeah,
It's like,
I think there's no real answer to the question, honestly. And I think, at least in my experience, that's like one of the cool things about coaching, right? So like, even with a model like you guys are displaying, there's still so much room. Like, even if you and I had the exact same model that you guys put up and we went through it with similar players, it's still going to look different, whether I'm doing it or you're doing it or anybody else on the call is doing it with the same model, because we're all different people and everybody has a different background. I don't know. I find it fascinating.
Right.
Good stuff.
Dustin has his hand up.
Andy, that's such a good question, man. It's the one that I'm constantly dealing with on a regular basis as well. When I start with a student, I try to make it pretty clear to them from the get-go that it may feel like I'm jumping around a little bit in the beginning, when I'm, and I let them know that's because, like, there's a variety of ways to deal with these different issues, or ball flight issues, or contact issues. And like, it's going to be the communication between the 2 of us that's going to ultimately lead us to the solution that's going to be most worthwhile for them, depending on their practice habits, their physical abilities, their athleticism, whatever it may be. And then ultimately, like, we'll exhaust stuff. Hopefully we don't have to exhaust everything. And if I know that for me, with my level of confidence, I'm a person who only teaches 10 or 12 hours a week. I'm not a full-time instructor. That I'm pretty quick to tell my students that if we can't figure it out between the 2 of us, that I have always encouraged them to go see somebody with more experience. That's just me, because being able to distill these concepts down in a way that you can communicate to them, like, I assume anyway that we all don't have the secret sauce for everybody. But it's such a good question. And again, it's the one that sort of keeps me up at night, trying to bring the best service to fellow golfers and fellow, golf enthusiasts, which, it's a game that you don't have to be a great player for you to be like a total golf sicko. You can have that bug and be anybody. So, I just try to I want what's always best for the other, golfaholic out there. I don't know. That's just my opinion and thoughts on it. But I don't know if I added much, but I just wanted to say that, like, you're not alone in in having these questions. So that's it. Thank you.
Dustin, I thought it was neat that you kind of are upfront with them about that. Like, look, at least initially here, as we try to find a way to communicate together and different possibilities to solve this issue, we might bounce around a little bit, but that's to be expected now. And being upfront about that, I think, is pretty cool. I think Pete has. Yeah, Pete.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Hey, but I was thinking about Andy's question, and as I look at your flow chart, when you get to the bottom of one of the issues and you identify a root cause, you're going to pick out one of them, say increasing hand path length. You'll explain that to your student that that's what you're trying to accomplish, but you understand that when you identify one of those issues, it's going to affect all the others in that horizontal row. So you're going to work on hand path length first because that's the primary cause. You got to get him to turn farther, or again, make his hands move in a bigger arc. But that's going to affect how he tilts his pelvis, how he, the tempo and timing, and also you're going to address all those things as you go pick one of those root causes. I don't think you really go that far down one of them. You're going to make him increase hand path length. Now he can't even find the ball anymore. So now you have to go across, to one of the other boxes in that horizontal row. I think, they're not individual issue. All the individual issues are tied together to others in the chain of events that occurs during the swing.
Yeah, that's a
Does that
great
make
point.
sense? Does that make
totally.
sense, or does that sort of address what you're thinking, or? So you're not going to go far. We're going to make you turn farther, but now, you're hitting the ball off the toe every single time you swing the golf club. You don't have to go far to know that increasing the hand path length wasn't the sole solution. Now you have to go across to those other issues and look at what happens when she increases her hand path length.
Yeah, so we gained speed, but what did we lose at that? And now what do we need to change because of that?
Right, and what do we have to learn to make that hand path length work in the way that you want it to work? Again, so if you've increased hand path length and everything else is equal, you're going to hit the ball farther. I mean, you're going to increase club head speed. But if you're increasing hand path length and you're not increasing club head speed, something else is getting in the way. You're not moving efficiently. You're not timing to move efficiently. You're not transitioning efficiently. So again, I don't think you go too long on one of those issues before you start sorting out the other issues that are, again, in that horizontal line. I really like how you organize those, those levels of the chart.
Cool.
And again, with further, refinement, obviously as you go along.
Yeah, further refinement from one golf to the next, but then as Dan was also mentioning too, it's also like further refinement as we learn more.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, the more we learn, the more we can fill in those upper, like actual reasons something occurs. So I don't want to, the context really, I don't want to get into it because I want us to get into it together. But I think how many simple reasons does someone hit the ball fat? Like literal fundamental reasons someone hit the ball fat. And one of them I never thought about until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. So I was trying to change a fat at a fundamental level wrong for 5 years, which we can dive into further once we get to contact together. But I think trying to give people that information so they can see the swing better, kind of like what Dustin was talking about. If we want you to have the knowledge to help everyone in front of you, so you don't have to send them. So basically combining all of our brains to help see the problem from everyone's perspective, like from every method and philosophy.
Yeah, I really like how you organize it. And I like how you organized into three main, there's contact, that's a primary one, right? If they're not making contact, nothing's happening. Next is club delivery. That's going to affect direction and curve. And then the third one is the speed that they can generate. So that, that's a great way to organize the problem that the student brings to you.
Cool. John.
So thanks for
Pete.
that. Yep.
So I guess my curiosity for the other guys out there, other guys, ladies out there, from kind of Dustin's point and also Pete's point, I do kind of bounce around in the early stages, but it's not necessarily to change the intended direction that I'm heading down. It's more to find a language that works with the person, right? Like I always tell everybody, like, I'm going to say this in 30 different languages. I'm saying the same thing. I'm just trying to find a trigger that works for you. Like if I say it in this language and it doesn't work or it doesn't elicit a movement change, then I have to say it differently to get a movement pattern change, right? So increasing hand depth is also going to increase pelvic turn and other tilts. There's other things that happen downstream. There's unintended consequences sometimes if you use the wrong trigger, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're heading down the wrong path. Does that make sense? Right?
That's
like
exactly,
so.
Yeah.
Just because I'm saying it this way and trying to get a movement change doesn't mean that we're heading down the wrong path. It means that I'm not saying it in a way that is allowing them to move properly, I guess, for the change that I'm trying to make.
Yes.
You know?
I that's how I saw it too. I think when Pete was talking is I'm confident usually in my diagnosis. I spend a lot of time in the analysis phase.
Yeah.
So when I'm changing what I'm saying, I'm not changing what I'm trying to change. I'm changing how I'm trying to change it.
Right.
And that's how I saw it. Yeah. I'll tell them that up front as well. I'm like, listen, here's exactly what we need to fix. And I'm going to try and find the cue or the drill or whatever to get that change out of you. And that might take time for us to find. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I've learned from watching John Dunnigan teach quite a bit. Is he's always kind of a proponent of if you don't see a change in 3 or 4 swings, then you're probably not barking down the right tree, right? Like, so if you have to change the way you say it or move in a different path to be able to get the response, you're still doing the same thing. You're just trying to get it at a different angle.
Yeah.
On that, one of the ways I've learned from the way that he teaches, particularly when it comes to cues, is that I'll watch on, sometimes he'll go to the 3rd cue that he gives a golfer, or maybe he'll give them a cue and then he'll have the golfer describe what that feels to them. So have the golfer put it in their own words, and then those are the words that Dan uses, right? So once he sees the desired movement that he's looking for, he says, okay, explain what that felt like to you, or explain what you were thinking there. What was the cue that resonated for you?
I think, what was your focus? I don't know if I use say their feel.
Yeah.
I would say, what was their focus? Because sometimes their feel, like, what were you focusing on that shot,
Right.
to create that movement?
I love that he uses the golfer's own words to then kind of help it sink in for that golfer, which I thought was pretty cool. All right, any other thoughts, questions, comments before we build one of these together? Jennifer.
Hi there. I really agree with your last comment. I think if you put it in a way that the student is understanding and using their senses, that they're going to respond much better, and asking them in a very open manner for feedback, like, what did you notice, or what did you sense, or what was your focus? I like that too. I think if they can own it quicker and we use their language, then the point will come across much more often and better. That's a good point.
Cool. Thanks. John Dunnigan. And your AI assistant, I believe, right?
He's muted.
You're muted. Dunnigan, unmute.
There we go.
I've never done this before. I was on a great golf range thing yesterday, and the guy had this cool note-taking assistant. I'm checking out for my skill coaching alliance, so you have to forgive me for that. Okay, so really cool deterministic model, very big deal, and I would say that it all starts in the brain. And the first thing I think if you're newer to instruction, we might make a critical assumption that the golfer is paying attention during the swing, which is not the case. I'm going to give you a really good example of a student that was struggling, and I go, well, that's the same swing. I don't see any different. What are you paying attention to? He said, I'm sorry. He said, I'm thinking too much. I'm too mechanical. I go, cool. Those of you guys who know me know that I'm going to take super hard mechanics and go real simple with it. So I go, okay, cool. We're going to hit this shot. Okay. And I want you to hit this low punch under trees. And I want you to kind of stop, like low finish. Give me a little Tommy Fleetwood. We're going to flight this ball. Whack, full swing. Whack, full swing. Third ball, whack, full swing. He goes, oh my God, I'm not thinking too much. I'm going totally blank. And I go, there you go, son. So we can't make progress until that is covered. So I'm always going to start with, what are you doing? I think that's sometimes it's very easy to go into changing swings first. But I think our job as golf pros is to get people paying attention first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh, I thought, are we on? Yeah. That's John, that is fantastic. And we had in our whiteboard, it's somewhere where we were drawing this out before, this along those same lines at the bottom, not just where there's attention at, but where their concept's at. We had at the bottom that then goes up from the bottom of it, because everything has to deal with the concept that they have in their brain. Same thing along the lines of, yeah, where is their attention? Is it even on the task at hand at all? So yeah, I think that is a critical factor. You're right. I think a lot of young instructors miss. You just you get them to pay attention to the right thing, and it clears out everything and works its way down the model and changes everything down the line automatically. Yeah.
All right, cool. This is fun. Jennifer. Oh, sorry, Jennifer, you're muted.
The example that John just gave was really great because he moved the player from being in their left brain and being super analytical to being in their right brain, where he placed the picture in their mind and just allowed them to create the shot. So I think the more we can do that for a player also, the more it clears the clutter for them. And that was a really great way to describe that scenario.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah. All right.
We go over to this. Can we still see?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's try. All right, let's. Is everybody up for building out one a little bit? All right,
Sure.
good. Well, we're going to.
We don't see anything.
All right, here we go. And just as a heads up, when we do this, it jumps into a different tab for us. So we don't see hands being raised. So I would say just hop in. Don't raise your hands. Just unmute and hop in.
Yeah, because we can't see.
Yeah. All right. All right, are we back on here? I'm gonna let you build since you.
Are you gonna make me
built this
type?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it. E.
Okay, cool. All right, so we decided on this one to kind of just start down through contact. So again, at the top is iron ball flight, and now we've kind of decided, okay, contact is an issue here. And just foundationally, as far as contact, we felt like, all right, you've got options here, but generally speaking, we might see somebody hit it off the heel, off the toe, fat or thin. If they're hitting it in the center, maybe we're not so worried about contact, right? So if we start here, we thought maybe let's work through fat, right? So if somebody is hitting it fat, what could the causes?
Yeah,
The foundational causes.
causes to the reason they hit the ball fat. Like simple, I would say.
How about
Yeah.
we provide these?
Yeah.
Arc height control.
Yep. Oh man, I got to spell in front of people. Jeez. All right, archite. What else do we think that might be on the same level as archite is a reason that someone would hit the
Guys, I think you could say just generically ball position.
Make it, throw it down here.
Yeah.
It's all about the face. No face, no triples. John Dunn. Love face is wide open.
Face open.
Go below.
Yeah.
In like let's put it there. Okay. So we think we're missing something at a crucial level that's on the same level as archite here below. Like why? Simplest reason someone hits the ball fat.
Distance from
Fundamental.
the ball, that
Like
address.
foot pressure.
The bottom of the circle is backward.
There we go. Low point too far behind.
Yeah.
The divot follows your hiney is what we like to call it.
What was that?
The divot follows your hiney.
Put
Okay,
that
and
down.
then I heard, I think, something, I heard two. Did you?
Foot pressure was one of them? Did somebody
Should I turn
say?
it up?
Yeah, foot pressure, but that's got to be down the line from
I would.
from the bottoming out of the club.
Yeah,
So I would. So there was one more I heard too. I thought.
I just said generically distance from the ball at address.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Hold on. That would be right here actually. Because that could be the reason for that. Yep.
Let's just call that, can we just put that under the heading of general setup?
Mm,
Right? 'Cause there's so many things that people do
Yep.
at setup that jacks up the whole system.
Yeah.
so you're suggesting we can kind of combine ball position, distance from ball into general setup.
Tilts,
Tilt.
weight distribution, all that good stuff. General
So
setup.
I would say, John, yes, and I just wrote it, but no. So for us, yes, but the way I think, at least I don't know, the way I'm thinking about it is not everybody sees that, right? Not everybody knows that, like, maybe this is the reason that we're hitting too far behind. So yeah, we could get so deep on this, and Eric and I lost our heads a little bit thinking about how deep we could get on this, but it is what goes inside our heads after the years and years of experience. All this knowledge of why, let's say, the low point is too far behind, or why the arc height and the arc depth is too low into the ground. So if I say general setup, yes, that's correct. But
you know it at a deeper level than
Yeah.
just general setup, right? You're considering ball position, foot pressure, all these other things that have actually been said. You are considering those as well.
you have that inside your head. This model, the goal of it is to get it out of everyone's head so that everybody sees what you see. And the
Okay.
reason you see it occurring. So you're 100% right. It's just we want it broken. We want to try and break it down to its lowest level so everyone understands what they should be looking for when they're seeing these issues.
Yeah, if you put general setup in the box, then you'd have to have all those other issues down
Yeah.
in a level below that.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I can do that. Yeah. Getting messy. Set up. Yep. See, it's spelled several different ways. And they're all under that.
Or so tilt could go in there.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
That level could have 8 things across.
Yeah. I guess we don't need
Chaplain.
to full- I think, I'm going to take it up for a second again. This is what Eric and I had
Right.
under fat as the two fundamental reasons someone hits the ball fat. And what I was talking about earlier is arc depth or arc height is one that I didn't even consider in my early 20s at all. So I missed, if I had someone chunking it, I was only trying to move the low point forward, not realizing that this was affecting where they were hitting the ground on that. So is there any, at the most fundamental level that we can think of? I know Eric and I sat on this one for a while trying to think of more, and I think we got stuck on 2, which might be because there's only 2.
But it'd be interesting
And
to hear.
obviously- That
Yeah.
goes for the thin as well, but those are the
Correct.
2 variables.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example from a club golfer. very avid, and can, you know,
Obi-Wan.
very poorly. And I go, well, okay, let's discuss how the golf club and ball work. And turns out she's been trying to hit the ground first
Mhm.
and try to get under the golf ball to hit the ball up, to her exact words. Like, okay, cool. It doesn't work like that, right? But then we go right to, okay, after we have the correct concept, just like you guys have down there. And again, you know, for me and our coaches, it's always a top-down affair, right? I'm going to go right there first, because like Dan just said, sometimes you change the concept, you change the entire thing. And then I call it the law of the circle. That's from my golf machine days. And I'm going to look for the first thing that could be causing a circle to move backward or down too low. And then we're going to alter that first and then see how it shakes out. And I think that the see how it shakes out thing, to Andy's question earlier, is I should get a change in movement. If I cue the golfer properly, I should get a change in the movement within 3 swings. Or the cue is not appropriate for that golfer. And that's, again, assuming that the golfer is paying attention, for goodness sakes, during the swing, which is not always the case.
John, I have a off-topic question. So I think John Flint said it earlier, the same thing that you just said from you. How is that from Will or something? The 3 swings?
Oh, no, that's from, well, some of it is from Will. Yeah. So Will is, for those of you who don't know, Will is my partner in crime. He's a PhD in skill acquisition or motor learning science. And yeah, so it's coming from his input and my 25 years of studying that stuff, but also 40 years of teaching.
Okay.
You know, like you'll see it. Like people, this is why you might say that teaching movement is not the first place to go, right? You know, you might not, one of his points would be, can you actually teach movement, right? People know how to move. They just, when they focus on how to move, their focus may be misplaced to the point where it actually interrupts the movement. That's the constrained action hypothesis, as you guys know. And that has to do with what you're paying attention to. Once again, which is the overarching principle for all this.
Guys, can I jump in?
Please.
Yeah.
I think we're almost like in between 2 different things that we're talking about. So I almost think that the model that you're putting on here is a literal, this is what we need to change with this person, that throws out their conceptual idea of what they're doing or their background. You know what I mean? I think what you're doing is more like a formula and is more for us. Like, so arc height, like we could say, okay, this person's arc height is too low. And that's the literal reason why they're hitting it fat. The person's, you know, move, you might tell them, you know, I want you to feel like you're going to swing over top of the ball and miss the ground entirely. And that person might respond different than another person. So I guess my statement is more like, I think we might be getting slightly off topic on some of the instances where we're taking in cues of movement and somebody's background on this particular thing. Does that make sense?
I think a little. That's
because you could totally get into the weeds where you have 4 million boxes.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, we did, and it was painful.
Andy, if I can, I'm going to disagree with you slightly in only one way. Like, so there are only so many causes, right? There's only so many absolute facts that are not subjective, right? So if we, for our teachers in the section, if we go right down this, well, I call the algorithm, you know that. If we go right down this, where it can only be this, and it's not an internal brain development stage that we're looking at, but we have to get in there to pay attention, help the person pay attention. But it's like, okay, we have a contact problem that whether we eat dinner has to do with our helping the golfer solve the problem, right? Because that's we eat what we kill, right? So then we go right through the steps of, okay, the arc height is too low, right? Then we go, okay, is it just a setup, right? Or the arc is moved backward. Is it just a setup thing? Like to have our teachers go right down the list in order, I think that is for us. But that if we go like that, that makes our ability to communicate with the student, hey, I noticed that you're tilted super far backward out of dress, right? What would happen, if we didn't do that? Might move the circle forward or what, you know what I mean? And that for all of our teachers to go that, I guess you can get in the weeds if you try to drill down to all the cueing you could give somebody. Yeah, I totally hear that, because that's when it's, 12 different cues for every possibility that we experience.
Yeah, I guess my point is like the above is more like a mechanical robot type. These are the absolutes on what this person needs to do differently, technically swinging the golf club. But then I think you'd have a whole other chart that deals with the person, and the cues and their background and other sports they've played and things of that nature. But I don't know that we could necessarily come up with something that would factor in both of those things.
Yeah.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When you do your pre-lesson interview, and for me, it's always about what other sports they play.
Oh.
So that's a big cue as to how I want them to move. And that's something that they can connect to. So a lot of times I'll use that. If they say, well, I play tennis, or where they are in golf, I'll always have them throw a ball so I get an idea where they are. Some guys will tell me, oh yeah, I was great, and I watched them throw it. I go, well, not quite what I was looking for. But in the pre-lesson interview, whatever I can take out of it's a cue to how I want them to move. A lot of times I can connect with them as to where I want them to go.
I guess my point in that scenario would be, okay, maybe this person's golf swing is too upright, generically, right? Maybe they've played tennis. So maybe we want them to feel like they're swinging the club more around their body rather than up and down. I don't know that we could put on this chart, did this person play tennis? But the
I'm not
solution...
suggesting that. I'm just saying that's part of where, that's a cue.
No, for sure.
Trying to get them to do something.
I get it. 100%. I'm just saying the solution would still be that the person needs to swing the club less upright. So the chart would still make sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just losing my mind.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. So Eric and I, for this, let's call this part one of the deterministic model or the qualitative model or decision tree, whatever. Part one of this is looking at the reasons why, technically speaking, mechanically speaking, something occurs in the golf swing. And then part two to that would be, so the true reason of the fault. Part two to that is looking at the fixes of the faults. So in this chart specifically, it's trying to utilize everyone's perspective as to why someone hits the ball fat. So why is someone's low point too far behind? Because one person might see it, if I simplify it, one person might see it as they move too far off the ball in the backswing, and another person might see it as they swing too much to the right with their swing direction as a right-handed golfer. But now that those two brains are put together, they see both of those ways. That's not necessarily how we're correcting those right now, but the true reasons for the faults in every which way. That's kind of what we're looking for, because I think if you don't understand all of the reasons something occurs, then you can't help it. As many people. That's more the point of this model. And I think getting you all to kind of think about that and explore that, like I've gone to go watch John a few times. I've gone to watch other teachers in the section and other teachers in the country when I've worked under them. And that's what I'm trying to see is what fault are they seeing and why are they seeing that happen? And that's what's helped me learn to add more tools to my toolboxes throughout the years. Because early 20s, ball curve's too much to the left, I got two options to go to. Is the club too far laid off or is the grip too strong? That's all. And that's all I could change.
Yeah, and I think faults and fixes come up, right? As I said at the beginning, it was mentioned multiple times in feedback from the first session of this. Faults and fixes, I feel like, are talked about at every teaching and coaching conference I've ever gone to. And so we wanted to kind of start that conversation and maybe get people thinking about developing their own set of decision trees or whatever you want to call it, so that they can think about the fact that, all right, what are all the possible opportunities for improvement once I'm able to determine the area that I'm trying to focus on? So that was kind of the idea that we had around faults and fixes, to try to encourage a conversation in that way. I think we're running up on an hour here. We've got a couple minutes left. I felt like the conversation was great. I definitely learned from you all. If there's any other topics that want to come up, or anything that anybody else wants to bring up, I see John's hand first. Go for it.
Hey, so I think that this is for a very first step in this for folks. This is like getting this down, drilling it down to the absolute facts, and I'm going to call it the geometry. Okay, right? Because the contact thing is a geometry lesson. There's some physics of the force, but for instance, how many people think that you can deceleration on a chip shot causes fat shots? Everybody thinks that. Everybody I've ever taught thinks that. And then I completely quit on a chip shot and don't hit it fat, right? Because it's arc height, right? Or arc location, bottom of the arc, right? So like to do this, to go, so a fat shot, period, the arc is either backward or low, right? Then we go, okay, here's the setup stuff that could cause that. Here's the movement stuff. And you go, you take the first instance of something that's screwing up that arc height or bottom location, and we change that. And I think all of our teachers in the whole section probably get better right away. It does require a simple, I mean, I can't even do math, but there's a little geometry in there where you understand, like maybe one person likes to see a rightward tilt at address. Okay, well, I just moved the low point backward, period. Okay, that's a geometry thing. I've moved the circle backward. Now, okay, fine. If I like to see that, well, then I have to move it forward again, which is that can be done. And there are people that, you know, some of the folks that I teach are getting older and they don't quite move as well. And there might be some evidence that when you get older, your spine likes to tilt to one side. That's very possible. That's coming from a doctor student of mine. Okay, I'm cool with that. Now I can build in a setup adjustment, like more of a stack and tilt feature to correct that. Or I can put in somewhat of a center movement toward the target in the downswing that can still get a person, even if they have a mechanical restriction, I can still put something in that will move that circle forward or upward. And I think that what we're doing here is really, really going to help a lot of folks who are teaching that don't maybe teach like some of you blokes out here that teach all damn day every day. So you have a lot of experience. So I like to ramble, I guess, considering I hate the sound of my voice. But I hope that helps.
I love the idea of understanding geometry. I think that's the fundamental that, once your athlete understands that, they can access it for themselves. that's the fundamental thing. We want to make a big circle, not a circle, obviously, but a consistent arc around our body. And how are we going to do that for each and every individual? They each have a different way to do it. But I mean, the understanding is, the first step.
And sometimes that idea alone, Pete, people will start to move in a different way. They just didn't
big time.
know. Yeah.
Big time. I had a woman, pretty much a beginner, and I said, it's a geometry problem. She goes, "Oh, I'm a math teacher," and she just started killing the ball. I said, you're going to rotate around an axis. You got to keep that axis stable, and you got to keep the arc moving. And she goes, "Oh, okay." Boom, boom, boom. It was amazing.
That's cool.
I thought it was great, guys. Awesome. Like the way that I look at it is the chart that we would come up with. If there's 50 of us on this call, all 50 of us would use the same chart, but our solutions could be totally different inside that chart based on the person that's in front of us and how they respond to our cues.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we don't have anything else. Enjoy the time. Thanks for all of your participation. And I look forward to being on the next one. So Jeff, thanks for the opportunity. Matt, thanks for setting these up. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Does anybody in the group have any other open topics they want to discuss before we break?
When is our trip to Penn State, for crying out loud? Come on,
Yeah.
man.
All right, we'll get it. He will set it up. I'll get offline with you and we'll set up a day.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.
Danny, great job, man. Thanks so much. I'll send out a survey to the group again and get some feedback and see how we can make these better as we go.
Cool. That's great.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You all.